Number one killer of wealth in the United States is a car payment, drowning in those car payments and debt, living above your means. And this can really impact your wealth. And so today we're going to be talking about what other options are there, because you're like, Elizabeth, well, I have to drive a car. I have to be able to get around. I also don't want just a $2,000 beater car. And honestly, there aren't a lot of $2,000 beater cars out there. And so I am going to be sharing all the research and information on how much car you should buy, what is the best tips, and also some information on what people typically do and how it gets them in trouble. Let's do it. So first, why is this such a problem and why is it cars? So typically the top two biggest expenses, actually the top three for a person in the United States would be their mortgage, so their house, also transportation, their car, and also food. And so if you can find a way to reduce these, or at least live a little bit more below your means in these areas, you're going to have more money to build wealth, to invest, and to create the life that you actually want to live. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about those details and the numbers. So the average monthly payment for a new car is $726. Also, the average monthly payment for a used car is $533. Typically, the loan amount for that new car is around $40,000, and for the used car, about $27,000. Is that a high number for you? Do you think that is a lot? Do you think that's a little bit? Definitely look at your own car payments or talk to other friends and see what theirs are. But if you pay that much every single month, you are not able to put that money in an investment or in an asset to work for you. You are losing that money automatically. You're in debt. You're also paying interest on that. And typically, it's not just for a year, which is 12 months, or 24 months for 2 years, or even 3 years. Typically, they will stretch it out. They'll say, see how much you make, and then they will stretch it out and make the number. So say it's a $40,000 car, they'll go, oh, well, you could pay for it over 10 years or 7 years. And so then the car payment for each month is going to be a lot smaller. However, you're still going to be spending a ton of money. You're still spending that money, and you're getting a car that is too expensive for you. And so yes, the biggest issue is a lot of people, we all use transportation typically, unless you're in Europe and you can walk or you can bike, and communities are made so that it's easier to walk around and bike around. But typically a lot of us, we're commuting or we have to drive all these different places. And so it's needed. It's a status symbol as well. And so we could talk about that, and I could do a video on that with wealth and buying certain clothes, or the house that you buy, or also your car. You want to drive a nice car. It feels good. It looks good. And you can, we don't even think about it necessarily, but it typically is a sign of status, or you're trying to show off in some way. But really, a car is simply getting from here to there. And now I have been in a place where we did buy a $6,000, not beater car. We bought a Toyota Camry, and we thought it was going to be a great deal. It was a really old car, but it was in great condition, we thought, and with 60,000 miles. And Toyotas can get 200,000 miles, 300,000 miles, which is amazing. But there was a little rust on the bottom, and it probably wouldn't have lasted. So we ended up selling it and getting another used car. And so typically, if you buy a brand new car, the other kicker with this is it loses so much of its value just by driving it off the lot. Have you heard of that before? And so typically, it depreciates the most in the first 5 years. So if you can get a car, a used car, when we think of used, it doesn't have to be that beater car like I talked about. It can be a 3-year-old to 5-year-old car, and that is the sweet spot, is a 3 to 5-year-old car. And then you don't have to pay for all that depreciation. Like if it was a $40,000 car, and then in 5 years it's going to depreciate almost half to $20,000, you can get in on that car for $20,000, $25,000 and still have a pretty low mileage, and then get to enjoy that car. So then it's still somewhat new, but you don't have to buy a brand spanking new car. Interesting fact, a lot of Americans actually have a car payment or totaling car payments because you have 2 people in your family or 2 cars. You can't just have one. Some people do, but $1,000 per month or more. If you are spending $1,000 a month or more on your car payment, if you would have invested that money in the stock market and gotten just an 8% return, which is typically what the S&P 500 returns, you would have $76,000.31 after 5 years, instead of putting $60,000 into your car. And so it's just, when you think of that, it just makes you think differently. And maybe it makes you want to make a different choice. Now, maybe you want to go earn more money so you can buy a more expensive car and you're not as worried about it. Maybe your car is what you really, really value and you just want a really nice car and that's what you do. Maybe you're older and you have a lot of money invested and so you can buy whatever car you want, right? And so I get it. And we want to live the lifestyle that we want to live, right? We all want to live this lifestyle or live above our means or have a nicer house or have a nicer car. But what is the cost? Do you want to be free? Do you want to retire early? Where do you want to put your money? And some people want to put it in the car, but just think about that and think about the cost and think about what you're giving up to get a nice new car. So how much should you spend on a car? We know that typically if you want to get a used car, if possible, that's an option. And hey, you can look at whatever works for you, but this is just what is guidance and recommended. But about 3 to 5 years, you want to have a car that's about 3 to 5 years old. And typically that's going to be a good investment, especially if you want to live below your means or you're trying to build wealth, etc. Also, you typically want to spend 10 to 15%, no more than that, on a car payment each month. And so make sure that you're not spending more than 10 to 15% of your monthly income that is your net. So it's not your gross, it's what you get after taxes. And so you want to make sure you spend, typically a lot of people go under 10%. So say you make $4,000 net after taxes each month, then you would be able to spend $400 or no more than $400 on a car. Now, with owning a car, there's other things, right? It's not just buying your car. Okay, great. That's a $20,000 car, $30,000 car, $40,000 car, 50, whatever. But there's other things to keep in mind, like maintenance, like paying for gas. Typically, gas for most vehicles each year is between $2,000 and $5,000. Americans spend $2,000 to $5,000 on gas per year, which is a pretty good chunk of money. It could be a paycheck, could be two, could be three. So that is something to consider, but also maintenance. And so maintenance matters. And now a lot of people will argue, well, if you get a really old car or if you get a used car, you're gonna have to pay more on maintenance. And so this can be partially true, but run the numbers yourself because typically you're gonna have to do maintenance anyways. And if you go with what a lot of experts suggest on getting a 3 to 5 year old used car, it's a baby used car, then you're not going to have to put as much in maintenance. Like for example, when that beater car didn't work out for us, my husband and I, we bought a Honda Civic, which is great on gas. It costs like $30 something to fill up a whole tank and it lasts for a while, which is awesome. And that is awesome. But then we got a 2019 and it's 2024. I think we got it a couple of years ago. So it was about 3 years old with like 15,000 miles. And so that was great. And I actually checked, and I'll show you right here. I checked on CarMax, which we went through, and it's about the same price. I just looked at a 2019 Honda Civic, one of the basic models, and it still costs like $21,000, which is how much we paid for it a couple of years ago. So super cool when we talk about depreciation, and it's a fairly new car. It's not the newest, but you can get a newer, nicer car that has low miles, which without having to pay for all that depreciation. And just a reminder, the maintenance typically is around under $1,000 each year, regardless of if it's used or if it is a new car. So typically the smaller cars are about $887 a year on maintenance. An electric car is $794. Hybrid car is about $888. And then some of the medium cars, mid-size SUVs, trucks, those are typically around $1,000 a year. And so you have to think about that. Yes, I have a used car, but most everything's up to date. Typically, you have to do oil changes. You also might need new tires, things of that nature. And when you hit certain milestones on cars, like the 50,000 miles or every 15,000 miles, there's different routine maintenance that you can do. A lot of it you can do yourself, or you can find someone to help you. But it's not like if you get a 3 to 5 year old car that you're going to be having all of these repairs and things. And some people get the beater car and they think it's worth it. And they're like, well, I would save so much money. Sure, I could put a couple $1,000s into the car because it's going to last a while and I'll still be spending way less. So totally up to you. Check out your options. There are times for leasing. There are times for, and even if you have a business, you can get big tax write-offs depending on the weight of your car and how much. So really all of this is individual. This is just talking about the average person and what typically works for the average person, but you need to go look for what works for you and your situation and your family because we're all different. All right, so this was a little video on the #1 wealth killer. Let me know what you took away, or if you have any questions. I was doing some research and I found a lot of good articles on how to save more money on maintenance. If you have any specific questions or how to find the right car, we definitely have been through that a few years ago and went to multiple different options. We've experienced leasing, we've experienced all sorts of different stuff. So I'm happy to talk about that if it'd be helpful to you. So let me know in the comments below. I hope that you're able to find whatever works on your journey, but a lot of what I want to do is just to give you information so you can make your own choice, but also just to make it known, right? Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know how much people spent on their cars. And it's like, do I really want to spend my money on a car? And yes, it's nice. I don't want my car to break down. And especially, I have a son and we have family, that we want to make sure we have a safe place, but we can also do it smartly as well. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys, you got this.